everyone, welcome to the Advertising Week JPEG. And we're here today starting with the session Reframing the Reality, how we came out of this better than we went in. So according to Harvard research, only 9% of business thrive to post GFC. And the X factor at the heart of their success was very human, two things: the creativity to find new sources of value combined with the capacity to excel at change. Chaos is the only thing that honestly wants you to grow. And if you believe a crisis is a terrible thing to waste, this is the session for you. So I'm Lucio Ribeiro. I'm the founder of Lucio AI. I'm a professor at Deakin and MIT. And today I'm joining two big loves of my life. I'm joined by Sean and Tracy. Good to have you guys here. Good to have you here. Thank you very much for joining.
Thanks
so,
for having us.
How about we start with the introduction? How about we start with you, Trace and Sean? Introduce yourselves, a little bit of background, but also respond to the question: what are the biggest things you have learned during the coronavirus? So, who wants to go first?
Off you go, Trace.
I'll go first. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Hall. I'm a marketing professional. I've worked for some of the world's biggest brands, eBay, Virgin, GoDaddy, in senior marketing roles. I decided to take this year to explore some different avenues. So I'm doing some consulting at the moment, and also some other opportunities which have not eventuated actually because of COVID. So that's been a really interesting kind of thing for me to go through. Personally, I am a single mum of a 9-year-old girl. So during this period of time, homeschooling has been a massive learning opportunity, I would say, for me. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned during this period is the acceptance that this is like any other challenge that I may have faced in my life, and actually approaching it in the same way as I would any other setback or any other hurdle or challenge or hook turn or whatever it might be, and how you frame it, and apply similar philosophies in terms of coping. It's obviously very unique, but that's been my biggest learning.
Fantastic. Well, for me, just a quick intro as well. My name's Sean Hall. Tracy and I aren't related, even though we share the same last name. And I am the CEO, and I call myself the chief energist of a human performance company called Energx. And I think for me, there's been a couple of big learnings. The first is I've really had to practice what I preach. As a small business person, I have not been immune to, I guess, the drama that has come with the crisis, and had to significantly evolve the way that I did business in order to really come out of this thriving. And that's really, I guess, one of the things I'm saying to my clients is that, well, the way I was even approaching it with my clients is that I've got no business advising people on this sort of stuff unless I'm able to do it for myself. My passion or my obsession in this too is the connection really between mental well-being and creativity. And I think that what this is showing us in so many ways is the world needs creativity more than it's ever needed it before. But we know that the circumstances around anxiety and uncertainty, for instance, really can be quite crushing for creativity. And so a big part of my learning and what I'm passing on to my clients has been around how do we overcome that uncertainty to get back into creativity, to get back into feeling like we're in flow, so that we can really use those superpowers that we have to make a difference at a time when they're needed the most.
It's really interesting, Sean, you're talking about uncertainty, and Tracy, talk about homeschooling. It's so, the tragic triad of human pain consists in the three angels of suffering, which is guilt, shame, and anxiety. And we all got shaken up. I got extremely anxious. We met chaos and we got lost. There was this overwhelming sense of separation and loss. And I was worried that I was actually in a path to a burnout. you know, because I mean, if you really think about it, some burnouts, and we talked about so much, the three of us, about that. Sean, I do remember how much I loved meeting you for the first time, which is that when you have these early signs of burnout, it includes loss of community, loss of faith, you know, loss of purpose, and the loneliness. They stripped us from the most divine and the most gracious things that we have. It's our own humanity. And I also noticed, Tracy, a lot of, I don't have kids, but I have a lot of families, friends with kids, families, and they had a lot of guilt and shame in accepting that they were not happy to be with kids full on all the time. You know, it's almost like this chaos invaded. Did you notice this as well, Tracy, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, it highlighted the fact that, you know, some of those feelings were true. We don't want to be around our kids 24/7 and be their teacher, their mother, their guide, their friend, their everything. And in small spaces, that becomes even more impactful. But yeah, and you feel guilty for that because you're like, oh, they're my kids, I should love them. And it's not that you don't love them, but yeah, I certainly came to the conclusion very quickly that I was never meant or have the patience to be a teacher, and teachers deserve massive pay rises in my mind. And you know, but again, you can think about all the challenges that happened with that. But one, you know, I try and focus on the positivity side of things and the positive mindset. And I learned things about my child's learning development that I never would have had visibility of. So, you know, I take that away and go, okay, I don't want to do it forever. It's not my gig. I can't work and homeschool full time, but what did I take away from it? And it was very much a deeper understanding of where she's at in her learning cycle, how she learns, what type of learner she is, and being really curious there. So I think there's some positives, but yeah, certainly guilt around not, you know, realizing and accepting and even verbalizing, I actually don't want to be at home all day, every day with my kids.
Sure.
So brave.
Well, I think there'd be a lot of people out there who would agree with me. And lots of chat groups I was on. There was a lot of wine drunk, and there were a lot of tears as well. But that's okay. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, well, sorry, go Sean.
I was just going to say I partner with a parental leave platform called Circle In, and we did a session for them because for their members, because what we saw was there was this sort of guilt and shame, and often, you know, a lot of that was being generated by comparison, you know, to social media and things like that, where you're seeing, you know, a lot of people putting out there this, I guess, this perception, you know, that they've got all their shit together and they still look beautiful, as well as being an amazing, you know, mums homeschooling kids, and, you know, and they're just putting more pressure, you know, on people. And I think that one of the things I've seen around burnout is the fact that what's been happening is that we've all been building new habits. I'm not going to use the word learning, because we're building new habits, and a lot of these new habits are being formed mindlessly. You know, so the default to back-to-back video meetings, for instance, or the fact that some of my clients would say to me, actually, I've just ended up with 2 extra meetings in my day where I normally would have my commute. Two of the clients I work with, Google and Facebook, actually just on May 22nd gave their whole workforce globally the day off on Friday the 22nd because of this burnout problem, and just seeing that. And I think that we come back to understanding what's sort of going on in our bodies that leads to these feelings as well. And there's a couple of things going on. One is uncertainty kills our dopamine, right? And so we all feel off, right? We know from, and we're just not producing the stuff that makes us, you know, it's one of our happy hormones, you know, so we need to know how to get our dopamine flowing again, but that's our natural response. We're human to feel that way. The other thing that we've found from Zoom, for instance, or doing nonstop video calls, is that what's going on is there's this dissonance between sort of what's happening upstairs in our brains and what our bodies feel, where brains are trying to trick us that we're connected and that we're, you know, we're in this together, and our bodies know that we're not in the same way. And that's exhausting for us as well. And so these are new factors that we haven't had to deal with before, because we haven't had such a, I guess, intensity and volume of this situation. And so all of these require, as you said, like a lot of it starts with the awareness of feeling that way in the first place, you know, and once you're aware of that, then you can start to do that. And also the acceptance or awareness of the fact that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm actually really, my body, I'm human. My body's doing what it should do. It's giving me these signals. So it's okay for me to feel off. It's okay for me to not feel okay. What I now need to know is understand why that is, and then what I need to do to get myself back on track.
But that's one of the problems, you know, like we are so busy doing so much and have we don't love getting busy. We just discuss it for not doing anything, for doing nothing, right? And we cannot really pay attention. And I love what he's saying about, you know, our bodies follow what's here, right? In the face of uncertainty, the world is darker, you know, and even more chaotic, you know. Our body and mind shut down and goes to survive mode. It's pretty damn hard to think graciously or spiritually about anything when you feel like being chased by a lion, you know. It's chaos. But maybe if you guys allow me, I'd like to actually move on. Actually, it's so interesting to listen to this, and we can talk about for a long time. But I mean, you guys moved on. I mean, Sean, you're expert on this, and Tracy, you back to work. You haven't been back from work. You are still working with your life going on. So how what's your opinion? How to go on without moving into burnout? Let's talk about future. How do we start now moving to a growth mindset? It's actually really even the time, you know? How would it go from chaos into some order, where you have a little bit more where our behavior can meet our expectation? So question, how do you go on without moving to a burnout, into a growth mindset? Is this the time? So how do we go on there? Who wants to take the first?
You go, Sean. Oh, okay.
Go.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, I think for me, acceptance is key. So we accept that this is the new normal. We accept that this is our new reality. And like any sort of, you know, if you look at the 5 stages of grieving, you know, it's not too dissimilar. You've got to get to a point of acceptance after, you know, denial, anger, bargaining, all of those things. And getting to a place of acceptance and going, okay, this is my new normal. What does that look like? How can I move forward? So we're moving towards something more positive, more pleasurable, as opposed to ruminating back and forward away from pain, if that makes sense. And I think acknowledging your feelings and emotions, as Sean said, you know, I would wake up some mornings and I felt like there was a brick on my chest and I couldn't breathe. And, you know, even just labeling that as anxiety and going, okay, I'm feeling really anxious, and finding ways around that. And an acceptance of a new reality allows you to then finish the jigsaw puzzle, in a sense. And I think for a while there was that feeling of, we don't know where the end point is. We don't know what the new normal looks like. It was this unfinished story in our brain, and our brains don't like unfinished stories. And acceptance of a new normality or a new reality allows you to finish the story in the new world. So for me, that was about, okay, well, there is a bunch of things that I haven't been able to complete or won't be able to complete this year. And I'm sure for everyone, you know, COVID-19 was not on anyone's vision board at the beginning of this year. It certainly wasn't on mine. So you know, accepting that those things are just going to have to be put on hold until there's a possibility that they can reignite. And what can I do differently? What can I lean into? What is going to make me feel good? And sort of drive to my own success in the new reality, in the new normal.
So finish on.
Yeah, so important. I think that you're coming back to that whole dopamine response, right? It's going, you know, what we know is to get your dopamine flowing again is about focusing on what you can control and then starting to act, you know, and that acting part is the most important, because I think what we've seen a lot is that people have been overwhelmed with the amount of information and sometimes misinformation as well. that sort of added to that overall feeling of anxiety. It's like there's so much coming at me. How do just somebody help me know where to start, you know? And often I think that when we're in a crisis, a lot of us don't know what we actually really need, you know, and having an outside perspective on that's is really important. One of my favorite sort of sayings from is that the opposite of stress, which is what we're all dealing with right now, is we're dealing with this critical combination of stresses. So conscious, unconscious, and subconscious stress. So the conscious stress is the stuff that we sort of can feel and recognize. So like with me, with my stress, I carry it sort of in my shoulders and my neck. And I know that when I've, you know, something's really getting to me, it's like I need to book in for a massage and get that out, right? The unconscious stress is when you're sort of tapping, you know, it might be triggered in some way in a meeting or something like that. You're tapping your leg, or you're shaking your leg, or you're clicking your pen, you know, something like that is coming through. But the most damaging form of stress is this subconscious, this sort of permeating feeling of unease, which is what I think we've all been experiencing as well. Like I know that when I felt like I was fine in this until I went to the supermarket and then I was like, get me the hell out of here. Like it was just like all of that transference. And so there's a great Kiwi biochemist called Dr. Libby Weaver, who says that the opposite of stress is trust. And I just love that idea. And you have to think about, okay, what do I need to trust? Who do I need to trust? And often that starts with myself. Like I need to trust myself that I've got this, that I can do this, that I can handle this, that I've got the strength, that I've got the skills, that I've got the support. And like even just pausing for a moment to really focus on that. And I think what I've been teaching people is that to build that trust with yourself, focus on what you can control, just like we talked about with dopamine, and then act. And there's only really 3 things that we can control as far as I'm concerned. And the first is taking responsibility for your energy. So what are the things that I'm doing, the decisions I'm making that fill up my cup, essentially? And that's as much about mindset and how I talk to myself and my relationship with myself as it is things like sleeping and moving, you know, and nourishing myself. The second thing I can control is taking responsibility for my energy impact on other people. Right? Do I turn up in a way that has a positive impact on them? And often one of the best ways to energize ourselves is to try and energize others, and not be an energy vampire, right? That sort of joke to people, don't be an energy vampire. And then the last thing we can take responsibility for is how good we are at what we do. You know, really double down on those things that are our skills, are our strengths, that demonstrate to us, give us proof that we can have impact, you know, and that people value what we do. And I find that sort of movement, you know, connecting that thought into an action straight away is what actually makes people start to feel more successful and in control.
That's so good, Sean, because you're talking about, like in summary, you talk about taking responsibility, connections. It's a pretty big, and you said this as well, Tracy. I mean, on the hardcore, and we're talking before the session, we talk about stoicism, right? And the hardcore of stoicism, and as a philosophy, is it's about the actions or the things that happens are neutral. They're not really anything. They're just an action. But the way you interpret it and the way we decide to react to those things, then it's where the scenes and the happiness are. So you talk about responsibility as well. And I think that one of the worst things that happens currently in our society, and I feel sorry for when I see this happen to me, is victimization, right? We have absolutely ability to feel miserable from time to time, to feel sad. We are entitled, human beings. But for the sake of growth, I think that we deserve to have suffering in an honorable manner and looking for growth from there. And the moment I see a lot of discussions where we remove responsibility from people, we let that person or that group of people become victimized, we're pretty much telling them, yeah, continue suffering, you know? So I think that's a really bad behavior that starts with a mindset. So I'd like to ask you, Tracy, in your opinion, what do we need to stop doing? What we need to stop doing and stop doing? What are the things for us to keep growing, to keep moving forward a better place than we were some weeks ago?
Yeah, I think acceptance, going back to that, is key. From a really practical point of view, just don't engage in the negative news cycle. And you know, we've all got those people in our life who love to kind of sit and tell you how hard everything is. Oh, so hard. And you know, and you're kind of ruminating over that again and again, and it's not helpful. It is not helpful. So find the positive influence, find the positive tribe around you that are going to be forward thinking and kind of encourage you to be that. I think from a mindset point of view, you know, a lot has been said about resilience being a muscle that you can grow. I actually think that resilience is a mindset. It's having that steadfast point of view that you will get through this, you will be okay. You need to dig in a little deeper. You may need to make some adjustments, but really sort of looking at this situation as you would any challenge in your life, any setback, any trauma, and knowing that through challenges in life, we do become, you know, more evolved people. We become more empathetic, we become wiser in some ways. And that's what I, you know, my point of view and philosophy about mindset is that resilience is a mindset. I get to choose how strong I am in this situation. And there are certain things you can do. So practical, I'm always very practical, as you know, Luch, but you know, I know in situations like this, I have to get things, it has to be simple for me. I have to pull my world back in and make it simple. So, you know, remove the noise and focus on the things. There's two main things that I do religiously that help me and help me. And it's different for everyone. Gratitude, 3 things every day that I'm grateful for, write them down. And you start to think, and in a situation like this, it's not good enough to say, well, other people have it worse, so I shouldn't be feeling like this.
Oh no,
it's
that's
more,
so silly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more, you know, you know, something more forward thinking and positive that comes from a situation like this. And so a gratitude practice is key. And you start to find those things every day. And then movement and exercise for me, just moving my body, keep moving forward, philosophically and, you know, and obviously literally. So they're the things that I do to get through this. And I apply those same thoughts with any challenge I go through. And this is just another one that's kind of come our way. And you know, we've collectively had to face it, which is nice because, you know, you're not alone.
So
I would
good.
echo.
Yeah, sorry, Sean. I'll move it to you in a second because I just wanted to make sure it's clear for our audience. You said something so relevant, so important. Actually, more than one, many. But doing nothing is better than being busy doing nothing. You know, and that's Freud. It's Jungian psychology on we keep ourselves busy doing stuff because we're so scared to actually face our shadows. So doing nothing is really better than being busy doing nothing. And gratitude, I've learned quite recently on my Buddhist Sangha that gratitude is not thank you. Gratitude is a temporary and efficient recognition of the temporary state of things. I'm grateful for being here with both of you learning because I might not have this opportunity tomorrow. Therefore, it requires my presence. It requires my attention. And I thought this would give you even some stuff. But Sean, I'd like you to actually just talk around what Tracy was saying. And if you can just roll also to how you applying, how you doing things with your clients, like what you've been doing, like in the real world out there, and what do you think what people need?
Yeah, so I think coming back to those 3 things we can control, that's really how we structure things, right? So, and so I am a massive fan of gratitude as well. And in terms of one of the practices that is about taking responsibility for your own energy, right? Because what we know from a neuroscience and also a positive psychology point of view is that gratitude is one of those powerful and simplest hacks that we have that are so highly correlated to our overall sense of well-being. It's impossible for your brain to be thinking positive stuff and negative stuff at the same time, right? But our brains are like magnets for the negative. they're like Teflon for the positive. And so we have to practice this stuff and make it sticky. And to your point about gratitude being temporary, right? Like what I know from research that I did back in my marketing days is that it's those little moments of connection that actually make the biggest difference overall. And so often when we think about gratitude, people are thinking, I'm just going to be grateful for my health and my family. But, you know, I just like one of my favorite stories is one of Tracy's stories about just sometimes even just being grateful for a tiny little moment that went right can disrupt those rumination, can disrupt those bad thoughts. And we know from positive psychology research as well, it's the most highly correlated practice related to overall well-being and happiness. So a big focus on that. So focusing on the stuff you can control. What I would say to people is that in every moment we have a choice, and we can either choose to be an energy vampire, right? And that is both to ourselves and to other people. So being an energy vampire to ourselves in terms of letting those thoughts continue and not actually building our strength to short circuit them. An energy vampire decision is, like Tracy's saying as well, choosing not to move, choosing not to get outside, choosing not to sleep and prioritize sleep. These are all energy vampire decisions that we are ultimately responsible for. So you can either choose to be an energy vampire, or you can choose to be an energist, which is what we teach people to be, is like, what are the skills that I need? So I can choose to be an energist, and an energist is a person that focuses on expanding their own energy, filling up their own cup first in order to expand the energy of others. And we're always in a much more powerful position to do that and to support others and to the people we care about when our own cup is full. So that's a key thing. And then the stuff which I'm really excited about working on with my clients at the moment is we're calling it the X factor, essentially, which is based on research that we've done for thousands of people, a lot of whom are in creative industries, whether that's client-side marketers, advertising, media, or PR. And we're really seeing that X factor talent. So if you think about why someone would hire you, promote you, give you a new opportunity, the people that stand out are people that have high creativity, right? Because no one ever gave anyone an opportunity when they said they're just going to do it the same way it's always been done, right? They want new ideas. They want new ways of thinking, high creativity and high capacity. So the ability to follow through, to excel at change, you know, to persevere, you know, even when times are tough. And if we can identify and build the skills around high capacity, high creativity, you will be valuable as talent. And that X factor is not about comparing yourself to anyone else. It's literally just going, am I better than what I was yesterday? You know, how have I focused on myself to build those two things, to be really great at what I do? And the link here between mental well-being and creativity is the fact that, you know, the part of your body that your employer or anyone's really buying is your brain. They're buying your brain. They're not buying your biceps, as much as some of us might like to think that was the case as well. But they're buying your brain. So our ability to light up our brain is going to mean that we're more insightful, that we're able to get in flow, you know, that we're able to see opportunities and come up with new ideas. And then importantly, able to follow through and bring those amazing ideas to life, to reality, and to have the impact that might be imagined.
Okay, Sean, give us 2 or 3 very practical tips if I'm walking to a meeting and I feel I meet one of these energy vampires and I wanted to punch someone in the face and I want to do bad stuff. What are the 2 very practical 3 things that Sean Hall from Energx would advise? And the question is coming for you as well, Tracy, the same one. So let's get Sean first.
So I would say, so first of all, any meeting starts well before that meeting ever happens, right? And so what I teach, so one of the things, one of my most popular workshops is how to have less meetings. And the way in which I teach,
session just on that.
yeah. And the way in which I teach people to do that is really by respecting why you're requesting or asking of people's time in the first place. So I teach people, I call it how to be an agenda angel, which means that whenever you hear from me, if I was to ever request your time, I would say, Lucio, this is why you are the most important person to be in this meeting for me. this is the contribution I'd love you to make. There might be a little bit of pre-work, and I'm probably going to ask you to do this afterwards, you know. And so I'm giving you all the information you need to turn up as your best in that time, but I'm also giving you all the information that you need to politely decline if you want to as well. And so I think that is one of the best things we could do, is to actually respect people's time before we request it in the first place. If you do encounter people, I guess, in a meeting that are energy vampires, the first thing I sort of say is, well, it's not about me, right? Because when you think about it, no one really wants to be an energy vampire. You know, if they were aware that that was their brand, you know, then they'd be horrified. You know, and similarly with our clients, none of our clients want to be energy vampires to their customers. You know, so we think about that and sort of how we might disrupt that. And so some of the ways that you can do that is really just by focusing or bringing, you know, a different type of conversation into the room sometimes. You know, I talk about bookending meetings, which is you start the meeting in an energizing way, you finish the meeting in an energizing or reframing way. And so, you know, it could be that, you know, if Tracy and I were in the same meeting, we might start it with a gratitude practice. You know, what is it that you're coming in here? Let's share this. Let's connect with each other as humans before we get to business.
And also it's very creative. It's a very way to be remarkable and to be memorable. How about you, Tracy? What are the 2 or 3 things that smart, beautiful Tracy advise people to do when you find yourself in a situation that becomes a high stressful?
Yeah, I think again, before you go in, it's having an understanding of yourself. So really acknowledging and understanding who you are as a person, what energy you bring to the party, and your own strengths and weaknesses. So it's about being conscious, having a high level of EQ personally. And then I would say, similar to Sean, there are always going to be people, whether they're in meetings or that you bump into in the street or that you come across in any walk of life, that will feel like they're sucking your energy out of you. And it's just about having that resilience about yourself through an understanding of actually just acknowledging that that's what it is, and not allowing that to penetrate you, in a sense. The gratitude practice is interesting. When I was at eBay, leading a team of 16 there, we used to start our with a lightning quick round of gratitude, and it was a fantastic way to get a bit of a litmus test on people that were in the team, a good place, a place or not such a great place. And it actually did lift the energy. It brought us closer. And that's just super, it can be a little awkward in the beginning, but people get used to it and actually look forward to it. And it creates another point in the week where you're responsible for verbalizing something you're grateful for. And that's a great practice to bring energy to any group of people or any room.
Thank you. So guys, we're walking to the end of the session. We have a few more minutes, then we need to wrap up. But I'd like to finish this closer to where we started. And we talk about chaos being the only thing that honestly wants you to grow, right? And it's my personal view of tragic resilience is a combination of 4 things: meaning, spirituality, community, and responsibility, you know? So, Tracy, going back to you, how do you see, or how do you wrap this up all together? How to increase resilience and perhaps become even anti-fragile? What is your takeaway home here before we wrap up with you, Sean?
Yeah, I think it's acknowledgement, acceptance, and action. So getting through those first 2 stages, I feel, we've done a lot of talking and there's been a lot of commentary on the impact of this and how people's worlds are changing and whatever. And now it's just about acknowledging it is the new normal. This is reframing our reality and finding some action points to allow us to thrive, as opposed to ruminate on what we've lost or the past. So again, those simple things for me: gratitude and movement, putting together an action plan, moving towards pleasure rather than away from pain is a key thing in the way that I think about how I'm going to approach the rest of this year. And just keep things simple. Simplify your life down if you need to. Don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah, but I think it's what I mean. My reading, my understanding, if I was sitting down listening to a device, would be heroically deciding to what it was doesn't need to be what it can become. Now it's time to cross the bridge. You know, pull up the strength of our body, our soul, mind, and decide on who you or me or who we can be. Not ruminating who you were and had. You know, it's the mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master, isn't it, Sean?
Definitely. Look, you know what gives me hope in all of this, right, is the fact that creative people solve problems all the time for their clients. Like, we have the capability to do this for ourselves. And so, you know, if we were to use an old design thinking approach, we would say, how might we come out of this better than we went in? You know, we would use our creative processes to do this, but the thing to think about right now is that we are the brief, right? Whether that's at a very personal level or whether that's at an industry level, we are the brief. So what makes a good brief? Well, the first thing that makes up a good brief is great data and great insights, you know. And so what we look at, and like what we might do, is we could share some free links actually to do this personally for people, is that you can identify so Tracy talked about 3 A's: acknowledgement, acceptance, action, right? I'm going to give you 3 C's, okay, which are context, confidence, and community, right? Which is sort of linked to yours as well. So I think context, what we need from a context point of view, and this is the same as when we're solving a brief, is we need to know where we're at today versus where we want to be, and we need to know why we want to get there. Right? We need to know that. We need to have a strong, visceral, emotional reason. And that's why we would never put out an answer to a brief that didn't have an emotional reason to create behavior change for a customer. Right? So the same thing for ourselves. Where am I at today? Where do I want to be? And why is that important to me in a way that moves me viscerally? You know, why is this really important? And so, and you'll know when that why is really the right why, because if you were to tell someone, they would feel it as well. Like, we just can't, when we're talking emotion, we can't not disconnect from each other, right? So, and the data that we can do is that there's 2 simple assessments that we use with our clients. So one is around your energy, and one is around your, what I call your creative bench strength, which is a positive psychology tool. So doing those 2 assessments will give you an idea of where you're at versus where you want to be. Then it's your job to come up with the why. The confidence comes from skills. Right, this is where I go, I've got the right skills. I've got, whether that's, and mindset being one of those skills as well, I've got the right skills to get me from A to B to my goals. Right? I know exactly what I need to do. I need the practices. I know what I need to learn. And I think what we're seeing here is this is where it comes back to responsibility, because no one's going to do it for us but ourselves. Once we know those skills, we've got to practice them. Otherwise, they're just information. And then the final part is really about community, but in 2 aspects for me, which is about support. So acknowledging that we're all going through this together, acknowledging that we've all got skills that we could all use or work on to be better versions of ourselves or to support our creativity, you know, and then holding each other accountable to doing the work. You know, so if we all agree that, you know, one of the things we need to work on is mindset, or we need to really work on understanding the neuroscience of creativity better, then we actually hold each other accountable and say, you said you were going to do this, did you do it? Right? And what we know is that we are 95% more likely to succeed when we ask someone to hold us accountable. And so what I would say to anybody is, you know, have a plan, you know, that has those 3 things, that has the context, has the confidence and the skills, and has that community part based in it. And you are going to exponentially increase your chances of success and coming out of this better than you went in.
Thank you. So, Sean, Tracy, thank you very much for joining me at Advertising with JPEG 2020. I thought I was not going to say the year, so we can use this video in another 5 years. Hopefully, when the coronavirus is just on the history books, and we're all better. Yeah. We're all happy, joyful, and energx.com.au. Did I get this right, Sean? energx.com.au.
That's right, mate.
Exploding, and I'm working for Tracy as my VP of marketing, and I'm doing campaigns. So I'm certainly we can our audience can find Sean Hall and Tracy Hall, who are no brothers, no sisters, but they love each other. They can find both of them on LinkedIn. Can find me, Lucio Ribeiro, and my I comes after my E on Ribeiro. Can also find me on LinkedIn. So I'm very thankful. I hope you all watching this session find yourselves in a much better now with the advice and wise words from Sean Hall, and from the wise words and the kindness and lovely Tracy Hall. So thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Luch.
Thanks, Luch. So much fun to spend time with you.
Thank you.